Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804, our military population.
And with that, welcome to America's Heroes Group, our roundtable with our partner, Hines VA Women's Health Care. Today is Saturday, January 21st, 2023. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness and National Blood Donor Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley, you heard at the top. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a panelist with us, Karissa, LeCaptain. She's a health and wellness coach with the Hines VA Hospital. And we're going to talk about the role of a health and wellness coach. How you doing today?
I am well. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Very excited to have you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Looking forward to talking further with you.
So tell us about this. So Veterans Health Administration is advancing an approach to healthcare called Whole Health. Tell me more about Whole Health. What is that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So Whole Health is an approach to healthcare for veterans to empower and equip veterans on their health and wellness journey. For veterans to take control of their health and well-being and to live life to the fullest. It's asking the question, what matters to you, instead of what is the matter with you. Bringing the focus of what's going right and not just what's wrong. And Whole Health is treating the whole person, not just the diagnoses, not the symptoms or challenges. It's the whole person, and really emphasizing self-care in a larger context of well-being. And when focusing on the whole person and the veteran and why they want their health, Whole Health is individualized care. And so it humanizes the veteran and increases engagement for both, women veterans and clinicians.
So how does Whole Health, how is it different for women?
So for Whole Health for women, each moment matters in a woman veteran's experience at the VA. So women veterans notice when clinicians take the time to ask, what do you want your health for? What about your health matters to you? And with listening and showing empathy and compassion, that demonstrates to women veterans that they're being heard, cared for, and seen as a whole person. Whole Health is meant to assist veterans to be able to connect with their health care team and feel safe and cared for. Women veterans want to have their story to be heard and want to build trust with their health care team, and building relationships with their healthcare team is a part of developing that trust.
Let me give some people some background about what you do. So you're a national board certified health and wellness coach. You serve as a health and wellness coach at the Hines VA, and you're basically trying to help veterans achieve a health and wellness goals. So what I think is really important is to try to define goals. Is it easy to get that to that point where a veteran is able to communicate and open up and say, this is what matters to me, this is what's important to me? I do like that approach where you're talking about you're just not focusing on the negative, but focusing on also what's working to reinforce that positive behavior. So let me know, how do you define goals and how easy is it to do that?
Yeah, great. Thank you for asking that. And it is. It's asking, like you said, asking what matters most to them. And goals, with working with, let's say particularly with a coach. Like as a health coach, when working with a veteran in, creating goals, it's looking at all aspects of their health. Our health, has many aspects. Our, physical well-being, mental, emotional, sleep recharge, surroundings, connections with family, friends, coworkers, personal development, a mindful awareness. All these things make up our health. And so, looking at one's health as a whole, when working with a health coach, a veteran, a coach asks veteran, kind of where they're at in their health in all these aspects, and and based on what matters most to them, looking at that as a whole, do all these, are they satisfied in these aspects of their health? Are they living in a line with what matters most to them, their values, their mission, aspiration, purpose? And maybe they have some areas in their health where their strengths, it's great. It's in balance. And maybe there's some areas in their health and wellness that maybe isn't in line with what their values are and what matters most. And so, with that coming in perspective, when realizing that, then it's, okay, well, where do you want to go from there? It's like, what do you want to see improve? And so maybe, that's individualized. And so when setting real goals, you know you better than anyone else when it comes to your health and wellness. And so to set realistic goals, a coach is to help partner with that person in looking, when setting realistic goals, is it smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, smart goals. And that's what helps an individual being more detailed. The coach helps really kind of get into the nitty gritty instead of kind of the over, maybe a broader goal that's not so smart goal. Is, maybe it's, for example, if someone says, I want to lose weight. Well, that's where a coach helps a person, a veteran, dig a deeper. What about that? What is important of that goal? What would you gain? And what would it look like? Is it, maybe it's setting a SMART goal in getting a little bit more activity or better sleep. Maybe that is where they start. But then, making incremental steps, and it's meeting that person where they're at. Maybe this person's never stepped, a foot in the gym and is intimidated. That's okay. You don't have to make all or nothing changes when making healthy lifestyle changes. It's making incremental steps. Maybe it's starting off with, getting shoes, getting nice shoes, to walk outside in. And maybe it's starting to, walking down the street to the mailbox and back. It's, where sometimes making changes can be overwhelming and, not sure where to start. And where with a coach, it's to help take that overwhelmingness and make it manageable, breaking it down to manageable steps where it's, small steps. It's meeting the veteran where they're at and where they feel confident and empowered. The big thing is being empowered to make those changes.
Well, I really liked what you said about taking it in small steps and incremental steps. It reminds me of a story. And there's a psychologist told this story about how he learned how to play guitar. And so he got a really nice guitar. I always wanted to play guitar, was always a big fan of guitar players and knew the history of all these different guitar players, but never did it through his, high school, never did it in college. And then as an adult, somebody gave him a dream guitar. So he put it in a closet. He had a nice box and everything like that, had it sitting in the closet, and he said, okay, one day I'm going to go out and I'm going to start learning how to play this guitar. So he did that for like 10 years and never played the guitar. And it's an expensive, beautiful guitar. So then one day he took it out and using his own research, he said, I'm going to take this guitar, I'm going to put it right by my bed. So he put it by the bed. And then every now and again, he would come home, maybe had a hard day at work or feeling depressed, and he just had a habit of just grabbing that guitar and started hitting the strings. Didn't know what he was doing at first, but then now fast forward another 5 or 7 years of doing that every now and again, just as a habit, coming in the bedroom, grab that guitar, put it on his lap, playing with it for about 25 minutes to half an hour. Next thing you know, he's playing with it for an hour or two. Next thing you know, he's playing songs. Taking that incremental step of just removing those barriers, getting the right shoes, for example. Now I can maybe just go outside. Maybe I don't like going outside because my feet hurt. But now I got the right shoes. I can go outside, and now that's the first step into the fitness. You seem to have a lot of compassion for what you do. How did you get this compassion? And tell me more about that. How did you develop this compassion for the work that you do, and how does it fulfill you?
I appreciate you asking that. I do. Being a health coach, I love the opportunity to assist someone on their wellness journey, and them feeling comfortable and honest to allow me to be a part of their wellness journey and to share their personal health and life And to be a part of that, to be a footnote, to help them and be a positive light so that they can keep moving forward in their health and wellness journey. I greatly appreciate just that connection with someone to be a part of their wellness journey. And, as coaching, I love working with individuals, and when, hearing them come up with their own answers, because as a coach, I don't create their plan for them. That's not empowering. And as a coach, when asking thought-provoking questions and helping them arrive to their own answers, and hearing the change talk from, I can't do it, to, I did it. I didn't think I could, but I did it. And I think I want to do this or this, seeing that change talk and, hearing them come up with their own solutions and their perspective changing on what was once maybe limiting beliefs to now the possibilities. It's just yes, you had it in you the whole time. It was just a matter of pulling it out. And that's something that I love as, being a coach, is seeing them, it's them doing, that's their success, not my success. It's their success.
Wow. That's really inspiring. The fact that you let them own their own success, and at the same time, but then help them do what a coach really should do, which is help them take that next step and move forward. I think that's so important, particularly from a veteran's perspective. When you first meet a new patient or a new client, is it difficult to get them to open up? How long does it take for you to really get to that point where they're really trusting you and actually confiding in you and telling you what their goals are and telling you what they want to do and taking that first step?
Yeah, it varies from individuals. Some individuals are really open and, they understand what coaching entails, because we first go over the coaching agreement where, I am upfront and share what my role is as their coach and partner through their wellness journey, and what their role and what my role and their role is. And we, go over in personal health inventory, which, we call it the circle of health. And, it's a way where an individual assesses their health, like I was speaking to before, in different aspects, about surroundings, food and drink, all those different aspects. And, having a conversation, that's where we talk a little bit more, and some, share more right away. Some, it may take a session or two to feel that connection or feel comfortable. And, that's something that has to happen over time. Some individuals feel really, want to open up right away. And some, it may take a session or two or so to build up that partnership and, the connection with the coach and the trust. And so that's something that, to build rapport, it may take time, and, in allowing that space, you can't rush things. Mm-hmm. It's meeting the person where they're at. You can't rush it.
Mm-hmm. So you talked a little bit about the personal health inventory, or the PHI, I guess is what you guys call it in your field. Can you explain a little bit more about that in detail? And then when you're going through this process, it seems like that's how you get to the goals, or to define the goals. How do you then determine, because you mentioned this a little bit earlier, going back to that, how do you determine whether or not a goal is realistic or achievable?
Yeah, great question. I actually, I'll show you a little bit. This is a visual of the personal health inventory. And so we ask kindly, as a coach, ask kindly for our veterans to fill out prior to our session. And what's on it is, it asks, first it asks, what you want your health for, what is important, because, when making changes, if we can, when aligning with what value it brings, why is that important? More likely, there's more, there's more desire, there's more motivation when we connect with why is even important to make a change. What is it that you want your health for? So, for example, some veteran may want their health to be able to run around with the grandkids, or, be able to travel and not have certain ailments, or to overcome that. And so connecting what that bigger picture is. And then from there, looking at, the different components, and they rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not satisfied, 5 being very satisfied. And so, ratings oneself and how satisfied you are in different aspects of your health, because each aspect can kind of impact one another, and they're all interconnected. And so with that being said, when rating on oneself, doing it with no judgment, it's just, a way for an individual to really connect with oneself, have an honest conversation, not to be judgmental. If this is personal health inventory is something that is, for your own benefit, and to, bring into awareness of where you are at. And that's what a lot of feedback get too, is some individuals weren't, were kind of surprised in some aspects. Some weren't, and from there, asking, okay, if looking at what the health you want to have, where would you start? And so some, may want to start in, maybe it's in food and drink, or maybe it's sleep and recharge, personal development, maybe it's stress management, some, that kind of area. And from there, when looking at making real goals, okay, it's looking at where do you want to start? What's realistic? Asking there. And again, when you said how to make realistic goals, it's diving into the little nitty gritty part of it. When making a goal, it can be, what is it? It can be short term, it can be long term, but it's asking the veteran what is realistic, what they feel confidence. If they feel that this goal is, a 0 out of 10 confidence, okay, well, let's revisit. What would make that, a 5 or a 6 instead of a 0? What would increase that confidence? And so sometimes when, big aspirations and great intentions, because one's excited, it's, where a coach kind of, asks those really, bigger questions of, what is realistic? And that's where we can take it down, or we can rev it up. But it's, really it's asking that person, is that realistic? And sometimes then it's, going into detail. Like some individuals, maybe it's getting, really setting a routine, a daily routine to, have more structure to be able to, have the self-care strategies they want to have. Maybe it's, getting resources to, be able to do the activities or to reach the goal. And so it's, assessing what all, that SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound, that SMART goal, that's kind of, how we utilize that acronym to set realistic goals.
Wow.
And then personal health plan to go with it.
Mm-hmm. I like that, because the reason why I bring that up is because in media today, particularly social media, we're hearing a lot of health experts talk about just giving these downer information, telling people that, pretty much a lot of times we're hearing that, everything we thought about, we knew about health is wrong. The food pyramid is wrong. Counting calories is wrong. Exercising won't help you lose weight. Don't eat this, do eat that. Atkins is okay, Atkins is not okay. And then so people tend to get confused, and then it seems like the research is also saying that most people that go on these journeys for a better health don't attain the health that they're trying to achieve, because either they started for a little while, or they fall off the wagon, but they end up right back to where they were square one. But it sounds like in the approach that you're doing, you're taking, it seems like you have more success. Can you speak to that just a little bit, maybe in another minute or two, then we get to our last question, but speak to that, how does your program, why is your program so much more successful than what most people end up doing on their own?
Yeah, no, appreciate you asking that. With Whole Health, we have, we not just only have health coaching, there's other Whole Health is a big umbrella. And so there's other resources, and, it's a culture change too. It's where, veterans primary care team is a part of their wellness journey. And, there's different modalities too. There's complementary integrative health approaches where, one can get chiropractic, acupuncture, or there's Tai Chi, mindfulness, yoga. There's different, approaches that way that along with traditional medicine approaches. So there's, different avenues where a veteran can, engage in their health in these different modalities, as well as with coaching and having, the different, a whole healthcare team, a part of, in their corner as they, work on their health or improve it, and working towards, their best healthy version of themselves.
So basically, so is this a way that what you just mentioned, is that a way that the VA helps connect veterans with resources in their community and also connect them with other things? Speak to about a little bit and give people an idea about what types of things and resources. You mentioned acupuncture, you mentioned having a team in your corner. What are some of the things that will help them get connected and stay focused on the path to better health?
Yeah, great question. Veterans, let's say if they did want to have acupuncture or chiropractic, they can reach out to their primary care provider and they can put in a consult for them that, there's like at Hines, we do have chiropractic and acupuncture in hospital. And then there's also in the community. So it's, veterans can get both in and outside of the community. It's a matter of, asking their primary care team, that their team in their corner. And so, asking their healthcare team, for those referrals, also at Hines, we have our rec therapy program. They do they have yoga, they have creative art therapies. So it's, there's resources within the VA and their healthcare team can, help assist with getting, in touch, in tune with those resources, as well as, if the VA can't provide it, with inside, and then there's also the community and connecting. And so, and with, working with a part of, as with a team, it's collaborating together to help assist the veteran, maybe, a primary care provider, veterans wanted to maybe make changes in, getting more activity or wherever, setting specific goals. They may then refer to a health coach to help kind of with exactly those specifics to be successful, creating that plan, their own personal plan, whereas, they may have the knowledge or information. It's just how do I get there? It's from getting, bridging that gap. And so that's where they can be like, well, let's get you connected with the health coach. So, we've talked about this in our, appointment. The health coach can, help you and co-creating your plan so you can be successful. So how does that, resonate with you?
I think that what it sounds like to me is that I hear fun. To me, when you talk about the community and talk about all these different programs, to me, fun is what comes to mind to try to bring everybody together and also make sure that people are on focus. Because if it's fun and people want to do it, then that makes all the difference in the world. And having somebody in your corner, having a team behind you to support you, that makes all the difference in the world. I really appreciate your time.
You don't have to do it alone.
Exactly. Karissa LeCaptain, Health and Wellness Coach with the Hines VA Hospital. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate your time as well, and thanks for having me.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Welcome back to America's Heroes Group with our Roundtable community outreach and our partner, AIDPH, that is the American Institute of Dental Public Health. Today is Saturday, January 21st, 2023. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness and National Blood Donor Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Clement, the co-host, Army National Guard veteran. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith. Our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our familiar voice and face on with us today again, our panelist, Dr. Annaliese Cothron. She is a co-founder and executive director of the American Institute of Dental Public Health. She manages the program fund development and overall strategy of the AIDPH. And we're going to talk about the 2023 DC March Hill Day, which I'm very curious to hear about and learn more about and see how we can support you and get an army of veterans behind you. How you doing?
That's right. Hi, Sean. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me again.
It's my pleasure. So tell us about this date.
That's right. I am really excited to announce that AIDPH is partnering with CareQuest Institute for Oral Health, a longtime partner of ours who's been working in this veteran space alongside with us, especially when it comes to research, and other veteran service organizations like the VFW, DAV, PVA, and recently the National Rural Health Association also announced that they are going to be a formal partner with us for this event. And it is scheduled for the end of March. It is a Veteran Oral Health Advocacy Day. And we are focused on asking members of Congress to vote for and budget for expanded access to dental care for veterans. And so this is something that we've talked about here on the America's Heroes Group show many times. We've talked about the need for expanding access to dental care for veterans, that there is really a deeply profound lack of access to dental care. I'm sure all of the veterans listening understand that firsthand and deeply feel just the stress and struggle that it can be to access dental care. Our research has really underscored, one, that veterans don't have access to care. Just to throw out a statistic that I think I mention almost every time I'm on here, but 85% of veterans do not qualify for dental care through the VA. They're not eligible through federal code to receive dental services through the VA. And of the 15% who are eligible through federal code, only a third of them utilize that benefit. And our survey research of veterans indicates that many veterans don't understand their dental benefits, don't really understand what's available to them, and really can't access necessarily dental care services through the VA for a variety of reasons, even if they do qualify. So we are expanding access to dental care and asking Congress to change the federal code to give more veterans access through the VA. And if you can't get care through a VA dental clinic, you can still be covered by being able to access a private or community provider. And really, it comes down to veterans needing affordable access to care. Our survey research throughout 2021 and in 2022 indicated that the main reason veterans didn't see a dentist is because they couldn't afford it. That's like many Americans. The reason why they can't go to the dentist or see a dentist routinely is because of cost. And we believe deeply that veterans deserve equitable access to dental care. Veterans have sacrificed so much for their country. And it's time for our country to invest in veterans, and not just in their bodies, but putting the mouth back into the body. This is about whole person health care. And so our Hill Day is really focused on that ask of expanding access to dental care. And we have a whole host of national organizations who are in the midst of partnering and planning. And so we're excited to talk a little bit more about advocacy here today.
So tell me, do you think Congress, do they have a handle as to what the importance is for dental care? Because one thing it's not just in veterans care, but even in Medicare, we talked about this before, eyes and teeth are always left out of the conversation. Does Congress are they getting a grip on this issue and how serious it is?
That's such a mixed bag. I know that there are some members of Congress who really do care deeply and certainly understand the importance and the value of both vision and dental care. But far too often when we talk to legislators, and really this is on the congressional and at state levels too, I'm sure a lot of state-based advocates run into the exact same thing whenever they talk about expanding, for instance, Medicaid on the state level. It comes down to dollars and cents. A lot of times when we're, for instance, negotiating Medicare, I know the Build Back Better plan originally did have a Medicare expansion point to include dental care. But when those negotiations happen and they're looking to cut dollars, for whatever reason, dental care is kind of left on the cutting room floor, which is really unfortunate. And so typically when we have conversations with legislators, they're always focused on what this is going to cost taxpayers, rightfully so. And that's why our research through AIDPH and CareQuest Institute that we released in April of last year highlighted the cost savings associated with providing veterans dental care. And so whenever we analyze the data, particularly the data that were associated with chronic disease conditions, we recognize that a significant cost savings was the outcome of providing access to routine dental care. And I'll tell you why. Number one, we know that chronic disease conditions like heart disease and diabetes, they have an impact on your oral health and vice versa. So if you have poor oral health care or poor access to oral health care and really don't have the opportunity to improve your oral health, then we know that you're going to exacerbate those chronic disease conditions, and that those chronic disease conditions are actually managed better when you have routine access to dental care. So what we also realized in our research was that veterans have a disproportionately high burden of chronic disease conditions compared to non-veterans, meaning that veterans actually have more prevalence, higher rates of heart disease and diabetes compared to the non-veteran population. And so when you think about how veterans are actually experiencing higher rates of these chronic disease conditions, and they are experiencing lower healthcare coverage for dental care, this whole person connection means that veterans are going to be chronically unhealthy, which just isn't right. The third piece that we looked at was emergency department visits. So this is a really kind of trendy indicator to look at to understand how, if you're unable to access dental care, well, where are you getting it when it comes to a point where maybe you have an abscess or you need antibiotics or you have a traumatic dental issue? What we really look at are pain and infection, things that we think can be avoided if you just had access to routine, affordable dental care. So that's where the bulk of those emergency department visits are happening, because you're in pain and you have no other options. And what we also know is that veterans are going to the emergency department more often for pain and infections in their mouth than non-veterans. So kind of looking across the board here, veterans have higher rates of chronic disease like heart disease and diabetes. Veterans have higher prevalence of emergency department visits for dental conditions that could have been avoided through preventive or routine dental care. And taken together, that's actually costing taxpayers about $7.3 billion a year. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And if you look at that and compare that to the federal budget, and I think I'm quoting 2023 now when I say the federal budget for the VA, for VA dental care, was about $2.8 billion. So when you look at the cost savings of $7.4 billion compared to what's allocated for veterans at $2.8 billion, it just doesn't make dollars and cents to continue not giving veterans the dental care that they need, because we can save almost 4 times the federal budget if we just gave veterans their dental care.
So this seems to be a repeated message I hear oftentimes when it comes to Congress, and also when it comes to trying to figure out how to put together a cohesive budget, is that by pinching pennies in the wrong places, they actually cost taxpayers more money. By just taking the time to invest and think about and listen to the experts that have the data and the information, like your organization and so on, to invest properly in preventative maintenance and preventative care so that these problems don't trigger other more serious problems, you save money. If you might be
That's correct.
complaining that you don't want to do your oil change in your car, but if you don't change the oil in your car, your engine costs way more money than all the oil change you could ever put into a car. Get your oil changed.
Absolutely. And what we can't quantify is the human impact. We're talking about veterans who are in pain, that they have mouth pain. That means that they may have, struggles with function and chewing and biting. I've talked to veterans who had so many dental issues that they had periodontal disease or gum disease, that was just so bad for them that they were in pain, but it wasn't bad enough to go to the emergency department, but that they had halitosis, and they felt like they couldn't really even interact with their coworkers. They felt embarrassed. They felt ashamed. Maybe the state of their teeth. They had trouble smiling during job interviews, so it impacted their hireability. We're not just talking about a veteran as a penny or a dollar, right? We're talking about human beings who have lives and deserve to thrive. They deserve to be, in society and thriving and functioning and hireable and feeling like they can interact with their family, feeling like they can smile in photos. It reminds me of a story from a friend named Sarah Sherman in Maine. I'm sure she wouldn't mind me saying that. She runs the Maine Veterans Dental Network. And she shared a story about a veteran who came to her who had not gone to the dentist since he left active duty. And his mouth was not in a state at all to be functional, unfortunately. And so he said, I can't afford dental care. And the one thing that I want to do, I don't care about anything else. I haven't been able to function, and my mouth's been hurting and my teeth have been non-functional for a while. The only thing I want to do is smile at my daughter's wedding when I walk her down the aisle. And that's what Sarah was able to give him. She was able to give him a smile at his daughter's wedding, which he deserved. And those are the types of human impact pieces that we can't quantify with data, but we know that those stories exist, which is why we're giving an outlet to those stories in our advocacy day, because veterans deserve to have their stories told, and we think members of Congress should listen.
So can you tell me more about the D.C. March Hill Day? You mentioned it's going to be at the end of March. Do you have a set date yet, or is it still kind of tentative?
We do. So we're looking at March 27th and 28th with a partnership with the VFW. And hopefully on the 27th, we'll have a reception for folks who want to join us in person, with visits occurring on the 28th. Now, I do want to say, if you are unable to get to D.C. in person, which I understand it can be really unaffordable, I want to make sure that you know there's a virtual day of action component to this, which means every single person listening has an opportunity to be involved and really have a meaningful participation in this day of action and in this Hill Day. So accompanying, in-person visits for folks who want to join us in DC, maybe you live close and you're able to join us, that would be wonderful. We would love to have you. If you can't make it in person, there are templates that will go out for you to send emails to your members of Congress. Hopefully by that time, we'll at least have some bills that have been introduced, and you can talk about how those bills will improve your health. We'll have social media opportunities for you to be able to share your story on social media, for you to retweet, for you to like, for you to engage and interact. And you can also call members of Congress. We'll give you the information and the tools and resources that you need to be actionable that day. And the big piece of this here, too, is, of course, we want to engage our members of Congress, but we want to engage the broader community, too. I think there are a lot of people out there who care about veterans and want to see veterans have access to comprehensive health care. That includes dental care. And so we want to engage the general public in understanding and get an awareness that veterans actually don't have access to dental care. And so just beyond the veteran community, we really want America, the average person, to understand that they can advocate for veterans too. And hopefully we're lifting kind of the collective consciousness and awareness about this issue through that virtual component for those who cannot participate in person.
Wow. So there's going to be some social media opportunities you mentioned. Facebook, I'm taking possibly, or YouTube. So will you have all this information on your website? Is it up now so people can go and view it?
Absolutely. So if you go to AIDPH.org, you can go to AIDPH.org, go to our communication tab, and it is the first page on that tab. Or you can go to AIDPH.org/VOH/Hill/Day, and you'll be able to find all of the information there. We are in the middle of finalizing all of the plans for hotels and things like that. So those details you won't be able to find on our website, but we do have an interest form. So if you're interested in participating in the in-person component specifically, fill out that interest form so that we have your information. We're still applying for funding, and so there's some opportunities that we could potentially defray the cost of participation if that can come through for us. And then I also just want to say, if you register your interest form there, we'll make sure you get all of the toolkits and resources to compete or to participate in the virtual day of action. And then one thing I really want to point out, just because some folks may not understand kind of this advocacy component, I know a question I get asked is this lobbying? And I want to make sure that we kind of say the line is that we're actually educating policymakers. So if you're part of a nonprofit or a group where you may feel worried if this is considered lobbying, I just want to reassure you that it's not. We are just educating policymakers about opportunities for them to advance equitable access to dental care for veterans. We'll give you all of those educational tools so that you can have the framework that works best for you. And we really hope that we can give you the tools for you to tell your personal story. So I know we all have stories. We all have had some sort of component, some sort of brush up against dental care, either maybe a bad experience, maybe a great experience. Maybe you can talk about how accessing dental care has really helped sustain your life and really giving you a good experience. We want you to show up authentically, to tell your story, and contribute to this broader picture of veteran dental care.
And I think that's really important, too, because what you focus on is information and data analysis. Because you collect data, you analyze data, but you're asking the right questions and looking in areas that most people don't really look at. And that really helps people that write these laws and create the opportunities for people to get health care, access to health care, so they can make better decisions, better informed decisions. Without the information, you cannot do your job correctly. And the easier it is to digest the information, which is all about the presentation, how you present the information, then I think it'll be easier for our lawmakers to maybe make better choices when they're trying to represent us as constituents. Because one thing that America can agree on, I don't care if you're left or right or in the middle, is that our leaders do not do a good enough job of listening to what we need as citizens. They spend so much time fighting amongst themselves and arguing and pointing things and sometimes thinking we're too dumb to understand what's actually happening. But besides actually getting into the real nitty-gritty and trying to solve some real problems. And you guys are doing all the heavy lifting. You guys are doing all the work. You guys are actually doing this, telling them, hey, this is if you want to make things better and save some money, this is how you do it.
Well, I think it's important to remember, like you just pointed out, Sean, the members of Congress work for their constituents. They work for their voters. And so it's really critically important for you as a constituent to specifically go to your lawmaker, right? And bring that up and say, I'm a registered voter in your district, and this is really important to me. This is how it affects my family, and I'm going to be electing leaders in the future who care about the things that are important to me, right? Like all of these members of Congress work for us as the American people. It works that way anywhere, whether you're talking about at the federal or state level. And so if you want to engage in this issue, even on the state level, where you may want to say, for instance, there are states like Oregon who just recently expanded Medicaid to carve out a place for veterans to get their dental care. That's so exciting. Advocates at the state level were able to go to their state level representatives and say, we really want to expand Medicare for veterans. Another really successful state, I think Maine did the same thing, another successful state like Iowa carved out funds so that veterans could get grants to be able to cover healthcare costs that were out of pocket and unsustainable. So there are lots of ways that you can advocate. we're giving you this opportunity to advocate and some frameworks and some tools to advocate at the federal level. But we want you to do the same thing there at your state level, anywhere that you're listening. You can make a difference because ultimately these leaders work for you. They work for your votes, and your voice matters. And I'll say this too, because I hear this a lot, where people will say, I send an email or I make a phone call, and does that even make a difference? Like, do they even really care? And I really want to impress upon you that they do. Having talked with some of these members and staff members in their office, it is not uncommon for them to say, I got 5 emails today talking about the same topic. I'm going to bring that up to my boss. And they do. You know what? We're not sure how we should vote on this bill. So I got 10 phone calls saying I should vote for it and none saying that I should vote against it. Well, that must be important to the people in my district. So even though sometimes it feels like you're talking to no one or screaming into the void, it actually really does make a difference. And we've been able to see that firsthand in some of the work that we've been doing throughout the legislative sessions, both on the federal and state level, that your voice really does make a difference, especially if you're talking to your specific representative.
I think that's really important for people to really digest the fact that it doesn't take 100 people or 1,000 people or 1 million people to move the needle. 5 people, if 5 people call in and say, hey, this is important to me, that's enough to grab somebody's attention. And some of the 100%. Highest parts of some of the highest places in power in politics, in your local state legislature, here at the federal level, whatever it might be, you got to pick up that phone, send that email, because trust me, it snowballs. And when we have events like this, March Hill Day, that is an opportunity for people to really come out and show their support and show what they're really thinking about. And once again, reach out to your local offices as well. Reach out to your local leaders, because a lot of things can be done at the state and local level.
And I know sometimes folks may feel uncomfortable saying, well, man, if I send them an email, if I give them a phone call, I don't really know what to say. Maybe you've never done that before. Maybe that feels a little bit intimidating, which is why the toolkits that we're providing are meant to make it as easy as possible. So we'll provide templates where you can just copy and paste, but you can also take that template and make it your own. A lot of times what we like to do is give folks an understanding in plain language what a bill may mean or what it may do. A lot of times those are really confusing. So if you just look them up online, it may not be apparent what that bill actually does. And because sometimes those bills are labeled or given a name that doesn't exactly align with the bill, sometimes it can just be really tricky to understand. So our goal is to make it as understandable and tangible as possible, give you the tools that make you feel comfortable engaging in advocacy, and also you can practice. There are some scripts and things that we can give you as you're making a phone call. And if it feels good to practice that beforehand, you certainly can. And hopefully we're giving folks enough time so they can review all of the materials and feel really comfortable calling a legislator or just sending an email and saying, this is important to me and this is why. So if you do see something in that toolkit that you'd like or is maybe missing, feel free to reach out to us at any time. We want to keep you engaged. We want to keep you comfortable, and we want to keep you knowledgeable on the topic.
Just got a news bulletin from Glenda, our executive producer. It says America's Heroes Group is all in with March Hill Day.
Right.
We want to support you and make sure that we get the word out. And using platforms like ours to try to actually get information to everybody in every nook and cranny of this country. And even if it takes that, voices around the world. This is an international show, so we want to make sure that everybody understands the importance of this, and try to put more boots on the ground. When you're doing these and you're going out and you reach out to your local congressman or a state senator or local alderman, whoever, make sure you bring a friend, bring a group, bring more than one person. Voices matter, numbers matter, people matter. Really appreciate your time and everything you've done. You've been really doing a lot of work, and I wish we had more groups like yours that bring the data and bring the information that's not partisan. Doesn't make a difference if you're conservative or if you're liberal or whatever. All that matters is, do you look at the facts and really believe the facts?
That's right. Yeah, we're a nonpartisan group. We're here to support veterans. That's our main goal. We're not promoting any political agenda. We're promoting veterans' oral health and well-being.
So take us out. What is the final word you want to say about March Shield Day and anything that you need to talk about for 2023?
So for 2023, I would say stay engaged, right? The legislative session just started. The new Congress just started. And what you can do right now in advance of the Hill Day is introduce yourself to your member. Building relationships and having staff members recognize your name is really important. And you can just say, it can be so simple as, hi, I'm a veteran in your district. I'm a registered voter. If you're not registered, get registered, number one. You can always say, I'm a registered voter in your district. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here if you have any questions, that I'm paying attention and I care. And you can really start that relationship now, and then you'll be fully prepared going into Hill Day, having established a rapport with that office.
Dr. Annaliese Cothron, she is a co-founder and executive director of the American Institute of Dental Public Health. Thank you for your time. Glad to have you back.
Thanks, Sean. Happy to be here.
This is America's Heroes Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606. Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Quaker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
Welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable with Women Have a Voice and me, Debra Denhart. Today is Saturday, January 21st, 2023. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness and National Blood Donor Month. Our host is Cliff Kelley. I'm your co-host today, Debra Denhart. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer, Ivan Ortega's Scouts Honor Productions. Today, on our panel is Jennifer Ruth Green. Jennifer Ruth Green is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and a combat veteran of Iraqi freedom. She's the founder of Mission Aero Pipeline, a nonprofit providing aerospace and STEM training to underrepresented youth, and is currently an instructor pilot, as well as serves as a lieutenant colonel in the Indiana Air National Guard. Jennifer Ruth, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's really an honor to have you here, and I'm just so excited to let's talk more about you. Can you tell me more about growing up and how your past has influenced who you are today?
Absolutely. So I am a military brat, a third-generation combat veteran. I'm a baby of 6, and both my grandfathers and my father served in the military. My grandfather served in World War II, both of them, and then my father served in combat in Vietnam. And as you mentioned, I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom. My mom is a trained nurse, and she's Filipino, and my dad's African American, and so I grew up in a biracial home. Again, the baby of 6, 4 boys, 2 girls, and truly do love my family. We grew up in a Christian household, and we grew up with a strong requirement for discipline and essentially a strong sense of the requirement that we had to own our actions and be responsible for our future. So that was kind of embedded into every decision that we made, and the conversations around our decisions kind of focused on thinking long-term and making sure that we were doing right in accordance with values, biblical values, but also in obedience to, what we were supposed to be doing as young people preparing for our future.
That's great. So that's a big family. That's awesome. I love
Yes.
it. I love that. Now, you're an Air Force combat veteran serving, like we talked about, in Iraqi Freedom. Can you tell me about your role in your military service?
So my military service actually started at 18 when I went to the United States Air Force Academy. And after graduating from there, I started off flying in pilot training for a couple of years, and then transitioned and became a federal agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. So my deployed time in Operation Iraqi Freedom was as a mission commander in combat. And the training that I received was to vet and recruit spies. And while we were there, I began to understand the human cost of war, but also the realities of what conflict means and how we as people engage and interact as military members on a large scale with the rest of the world. And so it was just an intense time. And I will say publicly that war is an ugly thing, the ugliest thing I've ever been a part of. And there's nothing amazing, beautiful, exciting about it. It is a responsibility, and it is work to be able to complete objectives to serve, ideally, the greater good of our nation and the greater good of people around the world. And so being willing to do that is something that I don't take lightly, and the responsibility as well is something I don't take lightly. But there definitely is a sense of camaraderie in combat, and you get the chance to work with people that you really would be willing to give your life for. So you make some lifelong friends and deep connections. And so it's just a very, very unique experience. But that was combat, and that was essentially the requirement during Operation Iraqi Freedom.
That's great. And you also have a piloting background. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So my aviation background is a sense of excitement, and then failure, and then growth, and it was a journey. So I earned my private pilot's license at the Air Force Academy. I'd been selected to become an Air Force pilot, and so I went to Air Force pilot training, and I was there for about 48, 49 weeks in training, and you graduate at 52 weeks. And so actually I was 6 weeks away from earning my pilot wings. And I was struggling. Every day I would get up and I would study and I would put in work and I would try hard, but it just didn't come naturally to me. And so eventually there came a point where the Air Force leadership said, hey, we just feel like you lack aeronautical decision making. And basically that was, you will do what we tell you to do, but when it comes to you making the decision about what needs to happen next, you're just not as quick as we need you to be. And so coming from the Air Force Academy, graduating as a lieutenant, and having the opportunity to fly for this long, I was looking forward to a goal, but I completely understood what, my leadership was saying. And so I was disappointed and discouraged, and actually that's when I applied to and became a special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. But in 2015, fast forward, it had been about, let's say, 8 or 9 years. I hadn't flown a lot because I was busy doing other things. But I said, let me try to see if I can pick up aviation again. And so I started flying just a little bit. But in 2015, I was in a missions conference down in Brazil. on a missions trip. And there were some people that encouraged me to pick up flying. They said, hey, you have a pilot's license, and we're here and need to travel up and down the Amazon. There's one plane and there's one pilot. And if either of those things are down, then we don't have the capacity to do our job in reaching people, with the gospel. And so it really just kind of spurred me to say, hey, how can I help solve the problem that I see? And so I went back and started an aeronautics degree and started training and preparing and earning aviation ratings. So I finished that degree in aeronautics and then became a certified flight instructor. And I said, I want to develop and serve missionaries through aviation. I also have a heart for underrepresented young people. And so I want to make sure that we can combine those two. So we started a nonprofit to develop and serve missionaries through aviation and primarily target, underrepresented young people as the people that we train with our STEM curriculum. So we're very excited about that. And I'm encouraged by the opportunity to do something that I appreciate and get back into aviation because now that it makes sense, it is such a joy and it feels so free in the air for sure.
That's amazing. I think it takes such courage to go back to something. I think as women sometimes we fail and then we're like, oh, well, I'm never trying that again, right? It's kind of like we just have these expectations that we're going to get it maybe the first time, second time. After a few times, you're kind of like, I think I'm hanging that in, But you went back and got it, You said, okay, I'm going to do it again. And that takes courage to do that. So I salute you on that. That's great.
Well, thank you.
Do you feel like you faced any obstacles being a woman in the military during your service?
I went to a school where 80% of the population was men. And so we were a part of a small population. And the first class of women graduated in 1980. And so they faced a lot of opposition being in service academies because they were previously all male. And the congressional authorization to allow women to serve and come in the class of 1980 was very very impactful. But they went through it a lot, and I got the chance to stand on their shoulders. And so personally, I didn't see any specific things where I personally had trouble. But I think there were some things that were quite unique as far as experiences go, but nothing insurmountable. But first, let me talk about some of the things that I've seen from, people who came before me. Thinking through the aviation situation in long flights and fighter jets, and by long, couple of hours, there were previously not women combat fighter pilots. And so fighter pilots, period, or combat fighter pilots. And so in the aircraft during those long sorties, men would use the restroom and relieve themselves through what they would call a piddle pack. And it was a pack that you would sit down and relieve yourself in. Well, it was based on the male anatomy. And so there was a point where people had to contend and speak up to Air Force leadership and say, hey, we don't have an opportunity for us to use this tool because it's not designed for our bodies.
Right.
And so there were things like that where people didn't have the resources they needed to be able to accommodate the mission or accomplishing the mission. Usually women would dehydrate themselves or they would, go to the bathroom after they got out or whatever it was. And so there just had to be accommodations that were made, but it was just things that necessarily weren't included, whether it was changed, even today, thinking through the fact that in military squadrons, people are building today pumping rooms for women to serve in the military. And so that's just not something that was necessary before because people didn't think through it. Right. But now that women are a steady, stable part of our fighting force, it's an opportunity for our military to continue to grow into not only accommodating, but continuing to embrace the needs that we as women have while serving in the ranks. And so just some unique experiences that people have fought for because people were unaware of things. Right. Small experience for me in combat. I was a senior ranking officer and the mission commander as we would go out on missions and meet with our counterparts, the Iraqis. And I found that oftentimes our male Iraqi counterparts or sources would ask questions and communicate, making eye contact to the men in the group, asking them what we wanted to do, where we were going to go, what decisions we would make. And culturally, that was normal for them. But as the leader, I was the one making the decisions. And so the men in our convoy would turn to me and ask the question, and I would answer, and then the interpreter would ask, or respond to our counterpart, and then they would turn around and ask a man again. And so it was just simple things like that were cultural, but nothing where I felt that it was insurmountable or intentional. That was cultural, specifically in Iraq, but nothing that, impeded my ability to serve.
That's great. And that's, something that has come up a lot, as far as like women or men, only paying attention to other men, assuming they're the leaders, in a situation, especially a pilot, right? Or in your position that you were serving, thinking
Sure.
that, actually the woman is in charge, so that's so true. That happens. Even with doctors, not being referred to as doctor because they're a woman, but Mrs. So that has come up, in conversations before. So, and you experienced that yourself. Now, you've done some amazing things, with the underrepresented children of the, the youth. And I just think that's so amazing. And you have so many hands in the pot, instructor pilot. Now, I'm really impressed that you, in all of those things that you have your hands in, you ran for Congress last fall. So what motivated you to run for Congress?
Yes, so we spent the last 18 months of the 2022-2021 calendar years competing for the opportunity to serve in the 118th class of Congress. And it was a very unique experience, but driven by this need to take care of our country. I remember February 4th, 2020, when I saw the State of the Union address, when President Trump was speaking, and behind him was Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. And it was not hidden that the two of them didn't get along. And so on a national stage, though, on one of the biggest nights where our country is conveying to the world what we plan to do, the commander-in-chief's intent, ultimately the state of our nation and where we're going, all of those things being public, the number one and number three in our country are having this passive-aggressive battle, standing, not standing, clapping, not clapping, those kinds of things. But ultimately, at the end of his speech, Speaker Pelosi tore up the State of the Union address. And not only did she tear it up once, but she tore it up 4 times. And I remember seeing that, and I remember feeling a visceral feeling in my stomach. And I remember thinking, wow, this is harmful. This is terrible from our leadership. And thinking to my role at that time, I was serving as a military commander of a communications flight at the 122nd Fighter Wing. And I had deployed people to combat. I had redeployed people. And it was a responsibility. It was the gravity and the weight of it was something that was not lost on me. And so looking at that situation, I said, wow, as a leader, it is my responsibility to convey truth and transparency, but also to convey strength and viability and connectivity. And right now, the leadership of our country is conveying weakness. And right now, they're conveying instability. And I thought about it. I said, you know what? Tomorrow there are going to be headlines. Tomorrow people are going to stand up and say, thank you, Speaker Pelosi. Thank you for what you've done. And this wasn't about Republicans or Democrats or President Trump and whether or not he was, the disagreements that she had with him was right or wrong. But the reality is, as leaders, we are accountable and responsible for our actions. And leaders on a national stage have to understand that they are conveying information to our enemies and our adversaries. And if our enemies and our adversaries believe that we're a house divided, if they believe that we're not ready to combat the challenges or to stand firm with the direction that the president has provided, then they see a house that's divided. House divided cannot stand. And it made me think, you know what? It's very easy for politicians to stand up and say, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get applause and people are going to give me money and people are going to say job well done and pat me on the back. But at the end of the day, if our enemies decide that we're weak and they decide to plan an attack, my life is on the line, and the lives of military members, my brothers and sisters in arms, we are going to be the ones that are accountable and responsible for responding to these attacks. And so it's fine to sit in your up-armored SUV and roll around Washington, D.C. and have a security team, but I am responsible for keeping the country safe, and it's your responsibility to convey strength. And the Constitution says that the legislative body is the body that's intended to declare war. And so I thought about it. I said, you know what, if people in Washington understood the human cost of war, they would be a lot more careful with their actions. They would be a lot more careful with their conduct. And we need people who understand the human cost of war. And I saw that 19% of congressional members had served in the military. And I don't know what ratio of or what the percentage of those 19% are people who have served in combat. But at the end of the day, that number has decreased because during the Vietnam era, we had many more veterans who served. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, I just said we need people who are ready to stand up and take care of our country and respect the responsibilities because we have a task to take care of. And one of those major tasks is taking care of being leaders and conveying confidence in our country and keeping our military safe.
And you stood up to that and you said, I'm going to do something. And that's awesome. I love that.
Yes,
it took courage to do that. And
Thank
you did. Now, what obstacles do you feel like you faced during the campaign? It wasn't an easy ride, right? I'm sure. So I'm sure there were some bumps in the road. Can you share some of those bumps that you faced and how you overcame them?
Well, I think campaign life in and of itself is something that's very unique. I was very fortunate to have solid friends who believed in the same mission that I believed in, prayer partners who were willing to pray with and for me that I would have personal strength and strength of character to be able to execute what I said I stood for. And I think that was very impactful and helpful as a foundation, and a strong family that was dedicated to helping me as well. So all of those things were very helpful. But there were some unique obstacles. For example, the Air Force leaked my records, my entire military record in unredacted form to opposition research firm who was researching on behalf of my opponent. And so they got a hold of my records, and unfortunately in my record is the reality that I'm a survivor of sexual assault in the military sexual trauma. And resultantly, they took those records and they took that fact and they gave it to the media, and they fished it around and farmed it to multiple media outlets. And there was a media outlet that published that. And so, the one of the worst days of my life became public fodder for the nation. And it was instigated by opposition in the middle of a political campaign. And the fact that happened was a huge obstacle, not only when you think about mental health and trying to stand up to the realities that you're reliving, the difficulties of that day, a day where you told somebody, no, please stop. This is not acceptable. Don't do this. And they decided to do it anyway. And now here you have somebody else who says, we're going to publish this. And you say, no, please stop, don't. Mm-hmm. And they decide to do it again, and they do it anyway. And it was reliving those things. That was a very difficult time. Things are still ongoing, but we have the facts out, and it's a real situation. But the reality is the depravity of mankind in the midst of this situation, when fighting for power, fighting to preserve power, or seeing and meeting people that when you want to connect with them and you're intent on integrity and building these relationships that are embedded in trust and trying to really move the ball forward as far as taking care of our country. And you find that people are transactional in their, in their connections. Those things, I think, are things that are difficult to wrap my mind around, because I've been in a team environment where people are focused on how do we make things better collectively. And the political environment was one that was not set up for that. And so that was unique to me. And I think as God continues to grow me and help me recover, those are some of the obstacles that we face. But I found that meeting with people, connecting with people, sharing the vision, and helping people to see what we could be doing and what better looks like. I enjoy that, appreciate that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to have 18 months to spend time with the greatest people in America who live in Northwest Indiana.
There's a lot of things that have to happen, like coming together, a community, that's what brings us, we can't do it on our own, right? We need other people. We have about a minute
Absolutely.
left. Yeah, we have about a minute left, Jennifer Ruth. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I did want to share, there is a quote that I really love. And when we're talking about having a voice and we're talking about moving forward and pressing forward, a quote that I love from my friend Chris Campbell, a captain in the Air Force, said, "There's no point in blazing a trail if the trail doesn't become a road." And if we are going to have a voice, we should use our voice, but we should also make sure that we are providing a hand back to help people to move forward and blaze the trail, but build a road while doing it.
Thank you so much, Jennifer Ruth. Stay tuned to America's Heroes
Absolutely.
Group. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Cliff Kelley, Vietnam veteran, co-founder, and host of America's Heroes Group. We have helped hundreds and thousands of veterans find the resources they needed to move on past trauma, find the services they need to heal, find training, jobs, and housing. That's our mission. To support this mission so that we can continue our work and have even more veteran stories of overcoming and success, we need your help. Right now, please consider making a donation to America's Heroes Group. Dig deep and give what you can to support this mission and help those veterans in need. You can donate through Chase Bank's Zelle app by adding America's Heroes Group as a recipient with our phone number 312-804-5831. You can donate through PayPal on our website, americashg.org. From the home page, go to donations, or you can go straight to www.americashg.org/donations. And finally, you can send a check to America's Heroes Group, Inc., 155 North Wecker Drive, Suite 4250, Chicago, Illinois, 60606.
And welcome back to America's Heroes Group with our Roundtable and our partner, National Nurses United. Today is Saturday, January 21st, 2023. January is Cervical Cancer Awareness and National Blood Donor Month. Our host is Kelley. I'm Sean Claiborne, the co-host. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have our partner back with us, Adelina Marshall. She's a VA mental health RN. And our panelist, Cecilia Sherrod. She's a nurse recruiter. And we're going to talk about the press conference at the Capitol Building in Springfield on February 1st, and also a thing called Section 742 of Title 38 of the U.S. Code, which prevents nurses unions to engage in collective bargaining, arguing about pay to try to get paid more. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing
great.
very
Thank you.
good, thank you. Yes.
So, Adelina,
We're happy to be on the show.
I'm glad you
And
came back.
thank you for inviting us.
Yeah. So, Adelina, tell us about this. Start us off. Give us some information and background about Section 7422 and what that means and what you guys are trying to get accomplished with this.
Well, 7422, this is the nurses, doctors, social workers are considered Title 38 of the U.S. Code. And for the nurses, this limited the collective bargaining rights of nurses and other certain professionals at the VA. This was added in 1991 to the U.S. Code, Section 7422, and this only allows certain professionals to bargain. This hampers our ability, and Cecilia can comment more on that as far as being able to recruit nurses to the VA, because there's other hospitals that pay them more. Some of them even working through the agency where their pay is probably triple what they're making at the VA in certain areas. So we're asking that this 7422 is overturned. Congress has approved it, but now it has to go to the Senate. And we're asking all our listening audience, their family and friends, all the veterans, to call their representatives and to encourage them to overturn 7422 so that the nurses at the VA will be able to bargain for pay. We, as federal employees, we're not allowed to strike, and we're not looking for that. We're looking to be able to bargain a fair wage and to make our nurses attract higher skilled nurses to the VA. Because right now, Jesse Brown, we have Mount Sinai behind us, we have St. Mary's down the street, we have Rush, we have Strogers, and we're all competing for the same limited resource, and that is RNs. And we think if we can offer our nurses a better pay package, we know we will not be at the top of the pay package, but we want to be able to offer them a better pay package that would make them more interested in coming to the VA and caring for our veterans. Right now, as the news and everybody's aware of the nurses in New York that had to go out for wages, everybody's aware of the acute shortage of RNs and how this impacts the health care. And the VA has lots and lots of programs. Oh, every day we're talking about something else they want to be able to offer to our veterans. But how are we going to be able to do that if we don't have the nursing staff to support those programs? Wow.
So, Cecilia, so tell me a little bit more from your perspective. You're a recruiter. And so when, when you're going to try to get nurses to come to the VA, so Adelina told us that you got to compete with people that are going to pay 3 times as much.
It's true. So, and I've been in the nurse recruiter role for about 1.5 years now. So I was a staff nurse, went into the nurse recruiter role. And coming into the pandemic and now out of the pandemic, where nurses were getting $150 to $200 an hour going into the pandemic, we're competing with that at the VA. And there was I want to say, 8-year period where the VA nurses got no increases whatsoever.
Wow.
So again, coming out of the pandemic, for 8 years not getting an increase. As a nurse recruiter, I'm trying to recruit nurses, and they're coming in and they're asking, well, what is your pay scale? And, of course, they're comparing our pay scale to the outside pay scale. And I can tell you I've had multiple nurses that have turned it down. Like, no, we can't take a pay cut. We would love to come and work at the VA and care for our active duty and veterans, but I can't afford to take a pay cut. So what the 7422 does is it takes away the ability for us to bargain. So if we can't bargain for our nurses, bargain for the facility, bargain for our veterans and our active duty, we cannot not only recruit nurses, we cannot retain the nurses we have. There are nurses that work 2 jobs. They're trying to keep up with their bills because, again, like I said, for multiple years, we got no raise. We got the cost of living raise, but no significant raise. So we really need this to not just recruit nurses into the door, but to retain the nurses that we do have. And when I say nurses, like it's just not RNs. It's like Adeline was saying, LPNs, RNs, CNAs. This is all nursing across the board. So it allows us, or I should say, it allows the facility to competitively compete with outside facilities. I work at North Chicago, where we've merged. We're a federal facility. So we take care of veterans as well as the active duty. And just as Adeline said, we have multiple hospitals that are maybe 10, 15-mile radius. So we're competing with these outside facilities. And I can actually tell you, we have nurses that have left the VA, like I said, because they have families too. They have bills too. So again, if we're not competing, we will lose our nurses. If we're not competing, we will not recruit any nurses. I mean, I have sat down with nurses, and like I said, they've actually told me I would love to come in and work for the federal facility, but I cannot take a pay cut.
You have to be a saint in order to do the work that you're doing, because when you're dealing with veterans, particularly in certain settings, especially after we just wrapped up Afghanistan, you have a lot of people coming back that are amputees, a lot of people coming back that have PTSD, a lot of people coming back that have all kinds of health issues that are unique to veterans and unique to people that experience physical trauma, burns, all kinds of things, being exposed to toxic chemicals, things that take an acute awareness of the specifics of what a veteran goes through when they go through combat, or if they've been just being on a military facility overseas even. But then you got to be a saint to be able to take a third of the pay when you know you're qualified to go work in any hospital in their neighborhood. Absolutely. And prior to being the nurse recruiter, I actually was a case manager on the DOD side for active duty. And then I went into case management for the veterans, the mental health. So it was called MICM, Mental Health Intensive Case Management. So I've seen both sides. I've worked with both sides. And you're absolutely right. They're both unique. But like you said, you have to love what you're doing. And the nurses we do have at the VAs, and Adeline can speak to Hines, they love caring for the veterans. They love caring for active duty. But again, they have families too that they have to prioritize. And again, we need to be able, the union, nursing union, need to be able to fight for our nurses. We do want to retain the nurses we have because they're quality nurses. But we also want to start bringing in, new nurses into the door, because we understand in 5 to 10 years, we're going to have a huge boom where people are retiring. So now we're trying to.
We're having that now. We'll hire, and then I've got at Jesse Brown, I've got 3 nurses leaving by the end of the month who are retiring. And also, Cecilia can attest to this, that we not only need bedside nurses, we need educators. We're constantly have to stay updated. Medicine is changing so fast, medication, IT equipment, bedside equipment. So we have to have educators also. So there's a lot that goes into running a hospital that maybe the general public may see the bedside nurse, but behind the bedside nurse are other nurses and other, team members that that we need to support. And even if you look at the nursing homes and stuff, there's not enough nurses to cover the nursing homes. Some of those nursing homes, our techs who work in some of them, just recently reporting to me how there might be only one tech. The other techs aren't showing up, or they're going to an agency that will pay them more money. So we're coming into a sad place, and for the VA to drag their feet on letting us come to the table to bargain a wage that will maintain our nurses, encourage people to come there. So I akin to IT when IT was real hot. Profession and everything, they were recruiting them out of school, pharmacists recruiting them out of school with high wages without experience. But we have problems trying to get nurses. We are fighting administration to hire AD grad nurses. Many of them are veterans coming into nurses, the first stage of nursing, and we need them. So this administration is supporting hiring people that doesn't necessarily have advanced degrees. And we have nurses who could do very well at the bedside to care for our veterans.
So on February
we
1st,
have wonderful programs for our veterans. We just don't have the people to deliver the care and the services.
So on February 1st, when you guys meet at the Capitol building, so this is going to be in Springfield, correct?
This is going to be in Springfield, and that meeting is going to be for nurses all over the state. And what we're trying to do also is to get ratios, because we have ICU nurses that are caring for more patients than I won't say they're able to care for, but it will impact the care that an ICU patient is getting if I'm carrying 3 or 4 patients. Also, I work mental health. We have an extreme shortage in mental health nurses, and even the unit, we're constantly paying overtime and asking people to come in. And we're also limited as to how many hours we can work. So federal nurses, VA nurses, are only allowed to work 12 hours in a 24-hour period, 60 hours in a week. That's overtime. But private sector, they can work 16 hours, and they can work as many hours as that facility will allow them. But because we want nurses to be able to deliver top-notch care to our veterans, we feel that if they work past a 12-hour day, that, fatigue will set in. So now they're carrying a higher patient load. They're working the 12 hours, but instead of having, specialty floors where, like step down or cardiac monitoring, where they should have only about 4 and 5 at the very least, they might be carrying 7 patients. So now that leads to more codes, because you're not there to more closely monitor patient if their acuity starts changing. So Cecilia can tell you about that. She's worked in mental health, and she could tell you the dire need.
Before we get to that, I want to get more into so when on February 1st, when you have this hearing, is it going to be a hearing or is this a press conference?
No, it's going to be a press conference to let the public know about the importance of ratios. And I retired from the airline, and I'm telling our representatives that when a plane is ready to leave, that plane will not leave with one pilot short. It will not leave with one flight attendant short. It will not leave if the crew has not had their legal break. But in the hospital, when we're tasked with saving people's lives every day that we're there, even I who work in mental health don't know what emergency may occur. And I may have to, go into emergency mode. And then I don't have the people to help me to bring the crash cart, to call the code, I've got to run back to the office where I can holler out and maybe somebody's there and having to call the code for us. Well, when we're short, we don't have that.
Wow. So what is there anything that the state can do? What can the state do to try to change or affect Section 7422 on Title 38? That's because Title 38 was what you guys followed as far as employment classification under the U.S. Code.
Right.
Section
Title 38 is federal, but the state can also pass ratio laws for the hospitals as well as the nursing homes, because let's not forget, everybody comes into a hospital, don't all of a sudden recover and go home and dancing and everything. Many of them have to go into extended care facilities, and those facilities are also impacted. And that can happen to any of us at any time. This is not limited to a certain population in America. I mean, this could be for anybody. And, we had recently, maybe a few months ago, there was the big news where that nurse, had that horrific accident in L.A. and come to find out, allegedly, that she had worked a lot of hours, possibly even 24 hours. We've had nurses that were delirious and had to be sent home because they're trying to stay there and care for our patients.
So
I can attest to that.
So this is the question that we came on our show and asked, and I asked you this question before in the past, but now it seems more clear as to what the bottom line is. If you can increase the wages and make their wages more competitive, so that nurses will then not simply just choose to stay away from the VA system, start literally starving the VA system from talent. Then you can start getting to the issues of why is there so few nurses working in the VA when we have all these veterans that need people to care for them? So what are the ratios right now you're talking about? Is it like 1 to 3? Was it 1 to 4?
We have no ratios. We have no ratios outside of, I think, New York, those hospitals that just brought to the attention of the people in New York. I think in their contract they just got ratios, but the only area that has ratios that is a law is in California.
Wow.
And it works. However, here we don't have a ratio. We don't have somebody say, if Cecilia and I are working together and it's time for her to go to lunch, there's nobody there to pick up her patient load while she's gone to lunch. So many times we don't even go to lunch. We come down with urinary tract infections because we can't even get the time to run to the bathroom.
This is so true. And again, because
this is depressing.
Tons of short
this
staffing.
is crazy. I mean,
it is. It's true. And again, when you have short staffing and you're talking ratios, if someone calls off due to fatigue, due to being tired, or just due to a mental health day, that ratio goes up. So now you're picking up their load. If someone,
so on average, just tell me, on average, how many patients would you normally see a night or see a day on their shift or a typical shift?
It truly depends. It truly depends. We couldn't even give you a number. I mean, if you're on a med-surg floor, you can probably start out maybe 5. Like I said, if someone doesn't show up to work, they can go up to 6. Then when you're slammed with patients being admitted on that unit, it can go up to 7. So, again, it does vary depending on the staffing, the need, the shortage, who's coming to work, who called off. So it does vary.
What should it be? What's a realistic number so that if somebody's in the hospital, if I'm a veteran, I'm in the hospital, so that I don't get neglected if I have a heart attack in bed and the nurse is with somebody else while I'm having my heart attack? What's the safe number of ratio that should be?
It depends on the unit, and the unions have those, and I'm not sure of the updated numbers, but it depends, like a step down or maybe a cardiac unit. I think their ratio should not be more than 4, preferably 3, but maybe you can go to 4.
No, maybe 4
I would feel comfortable with 3.
A med-surg,
there's only so many hours in a day. I mean, at the end of the
again, like she's saying, it depends on the acuity of the patient. If you have an acuity means how sick they are. If you have a patient that's truly sick, that person is going to demand a lot of your time. I also worked ICU. I worked ICU for 5 years, and our ratio was literally 1 to 2. So I was one nurse, and I can only take 2 patients because my patients were vented on multiple drips. So I'm literally leaving one patient room and going to the next patient room, going from that patient room, going back to this patient room because I have drips I have to hang up. I have medication that I have to give, hourly medication. So again, like I said, it depends on the unit and it depends on the acuity, meaning how sick they are. The sicker they are, the more time you're in that room with them.
Now, our doctors,
right, and our patients are coming in. Our veterans are coming in with more comorbidities than ever. Mm-hmm. They're aging. Right. They're dealing with heart disease, diabetes. Mm-hmm. All of this impacts the care that they need.
So nurses are Title 38, but are doctors also Title 38?
Yes, doctors. Yeah, we're trying to recruit doctors. We're trying to recruit NPs. We're trying to recruit all kind of specialties.
LPN, CNAs, healthcare techs, same thing. I'm going to tell you, at North Chicago, we had a fourth of our LPNs leave. They literally left. And we were scrambling, and I had I think in June, I actually did a job fair. And I probably had 3 LPNs apply because, again, that pay was so low. They were like, no, we're not coming to the VA. You guys aren't paying anything. So, like I said, when you say nursing, it's every healthcare service across the board.
But this is sickening. I mean, how can you be doing the same work for the same doing this? It's something as such an important task of taking care of somebody else's health, where it's a life and death situation. Literally, you work at the front lines of life and death. This is crazy to me. I can't understand this. What do we need to do as veterans to support you to get the word out and also get our people that are lawmakers to look at this and take this seriously? I know last year the National Nurses United had a hearing in Congress. I know there were certain things that were mentioned. All the points you brought up were mentioned then. What do we need to do to get this ball moving forward and get people to really look at this and see the inequity that this title accomplishes? We got about 10 seconds to answer that.
Our veteran groups out there should contact their representative. They can join February the 1st to go to Springfield with us. They can come to Washington. They can email Washington. They themselves are very, very creative in getting Congress and the Senate to listen to them. And this is for our veterans. They are our national heroes. I mean, I really believe that. And the war now in Ukraine makes us all so much more aware of what our veterans have experienced or possibly could have experienced. And it's scary. And they need us to be there. We need to support them 100%.
Adelina Marshall, Cecilia Sherrod, really appreciate your time. Thanks for bringing us information. And also, we are looking forward to see what comes out of February 1st on Section 7422 of Title 38 U.S. Code. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night. Thank you so much. Good night.
Bravo, VA nurses, because without nurses, you don't have a hospital.
Right.
Yeah. Doctors come in, they do what they do, and then they leave out. That nurse is there for 8 hours. Mm-hmm. So bravo, National Nurses United, our partners. I want to thank our advisory board member, the Illinois 7th Congressional District Congressman Danny K. Davis, for his donation last week to America's Heroes Group, because everything he does, I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it. So much this man has done over the years. I never told it because it was natural. But sometimes he doesn't get recognized and people have the assumption that he's not. So I'm going to keep it clear and tell it like a TI is. Thank you, Congressman Davis, for being who you are, about your constituents and the service of the people from your heart. Appreciate you so very much. Thank you to our technical producer, Miss Kaya, the smooth operator who keeps us balanced, and the best digital media producer America's Group has ever had, Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. Thank you all for listening to America's Heroes Group. We appreciate you because you have made us global, being who you are, listening and connecting to America's Heroes Group. Sean Claiborne, one of the best co-hosts we've ever had, Colonel Dr. Damian Arnold, and Cliff Kelley, the governor of Talk Radio, co-founder, Vietnam veteran and host of America's Heroes Group. We are all proud of you for keeping it going, keeping it balanced, but also adding that additional voice that takes it to another level.
And Debra did a great job today.
They all
Got a
did.
new-
We had
got a
some
new
great
team
shows
player.
from Hines to Debra to Illinois, America's Institute of Dental Health, Public Health. We had some great shows, as always, because that's what we do, Sean. We connect the disconnected intentionally. AHG Connects, hashtags.
Real unit.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy. America's Heroes Group.